Hey there, my growers and friends. Welcome to another installment of Mornings with Gray. I am happy for you to join me here this morning. And I just want to say, before we get into our topic of discussion, which today we're going to be talking about container soil, I just want to say that you could be anywhere in the world right now, but you're choosing to be here with me. And I greatly appreciate you for that. So, as always, let me take a sip of my coffee, and then we'll get into the topic of discussion. Now, I just want to say, that I was thinking about something this morning as I was getting prepared for today's live. Mornings with Gray essentially has become a container gardening TED Talk. Um, it's interesting. I didn't mean for it to be that way, but I think it's good because a lot of us as gardeners, we talk about the square footage gardening and we talk about, all these different aspects of gardening, but I don't think enough focus is placed on our container gardeners because let's face it, not everyone has the acreage or the square footage to be able to grow. And I want you all to know that you can always grow no matter where you are. With that being said, let's take a look at some of the things that I have going right now on this very deck that we're going to be on today. I mean, we have mandarin oranges coming in. We also have Myers lemons, chives, tomatillos, basil. Yep, even my moringa trees, my pink pineapples, and so forth. So don't let anyone tell you that, oh, you need 2 or 3 acres or you need 1 acre to start growing, that's the first thing you'll need. No, it's not true. You can grow anywhere. And as long as you stick with me, I'll make sure you get all of the knowledge that I have, I'll bestow onto you so that you can grow as well. And now, with that being said, of course, as always, I'll be answering your questions live here as well. But today's discussion is totally going to be about container gardening and it's going to be about container soil. So, because not all soils are created the same. Oh, Miss Kitty is here. This is perfect topic for me. I only have a patio. Yes, you can do it on a patio. Miss Kitty, Kitty One, and you are like my best fan because you are here every single morning when we are doing our mornings with Grace. So thank you for joining me yet again. All right. So with that being said, I'm sitting on the deck. And we're gonna move down because today we're gonna get a little dirty. Okay, so let's go ahead and move the camera into position so that we can see our examples for today. Now, I just want to say that soil is something very near and dear to me because I truly feel like this is a subject I could maybe do a whole semester on. Like if we were teaching this in a college aspect or if we were even teaching it in secondary school, this is something that I could spend an entire semester just talking about soil science because it's so important for our plants. A lot of the problems that we have with our plants are truly soil based. And if we can figure out how to have healthy soil, then of course, in turn, we can get healthy plants. Now, unfortunately, at this angle, you get to see my little bony legs and my Crocs and socks. But Graylin only comes with the real. Why am I speaking in third person? I only bring the real. So this is what I wear in the mornings when I'm out in the garden because it's hot out here in Texas. But I digress. So let's get into talking about soils, okay? So the first thing I want you guys to understand, and I know some of you probably already know this information, but remember, even though this is alive, I'm going to post this on all the other platforms so that we can share this information with our beginner gardeners. And if there's any tidbits that you want to add and you want to help beginner gardeners as well, put that in the comments and I will say it out loud so we can share it with everybody. Because the more gardeners we can help, the better, right? We're a community of growers. We have this relationship, this bond. So feel free to jump in and I will share your comment as well. Okay. So when we're talking about our soils, especially if we're a novice, we get into our big box stores and there's a lot of confusion. We don't know which soil to get. But before we even get there, let's go to a topic discussion. This is going to be a call and response. Okay. What's the difference between dirt and soil? Because I've seen it a lot in the gardening communities, right? Like in the Facebooks and so forth, where people are like, oh, is it dirt or is it soil? What's the difference? Does anybody know? While you guys think about it, because I really want you to answer this in the chat. Let me grab my coffee again because it's still early. So the question at hand that I have for you, the audience, is what's the difference between dirt and soil? And can we get best guess? Mm, Althea's Kitchen. Okay. Althea's Kitchen right out the gates. Althea's Kitchen says dirt has no biology. Yes. All right. Look, you can keep answering, but Althea's Kitchen got it right out the gates. Dirt has no biology. There's no life in dirt. That is exactly the 100% textbook answer. When we're talking about dirt, and it's a little bit of irony there, because even Andre and Derek and our podcast on Mondays is called The Dirt on Gardening. It's a play on words, but dirt is devoid of life. So when we're talking about dirt, and this is actually some dirt I pulled from my own yard this morning, I want you guys to look at this. Now, granted, I do have a little bit of organic matter in there, but this is completely devoid of life. There's no microorganisms, there's no protozoa, there's no macroorganisms. It is just devoid of life altogether. That's going to be your dirt. This is going to be hard to grow in because since there's no biology there, since there's no living matter there, it's going to be hard to get this to produce plant life. Soil is going to have the exact opposite of that. So when we're talking about soil, it's going to have those macroorganisms. It's going to have that biology, that bacteria, the protozoa. It's going to have all those different things in there. This one is going to help cultivate that soil. Now we have questions in the comments. It looks like I touched on a hot button subject. And it said, all right, so Miss Kitty says, I guess it has to have different nutrients. Well, it's not just the nutrients, it's that living aspect of it. You need to have that life inside of it. All right. Sweet Mama Clater says there's mushrooms growing in my soil and dirt mixture. Is that healthy? If you have life coming up out of that soil, then yes. I mean, now granted, I'm going to say one thing because I get a lot of questions about fungi. I am not an expert when it comes to fungi. I mean, I can identify maybe 0.5% of the fungi that grow out here in my microclimate, but that is one aspect that I am not proficient on. And because I'm not proficient on it, I don't give advice on it because I would hate to give somebody bad information when it comes to like our fungi and such. I really don't know enough. Maybe I need to go back and do a little bit more research on it myself, but that's one subject that I'm not proficient on. But yes, I'm going to say just as a blanket statement, if you have fungi growing in it, that is life. So it still could be a good soil. It could be a good dirt, quote unquote. But the only difference is that you might have a lot of organic matter in it. So when we're going back into my realm, into my level of expertise, if you got a lot of fungi and such growing in your dirt and soil, that means you have a representation of a lot of organic matter that's breaking down, which potentially could be good depending on what you're growing. But very good statement. All right, let's see what else that we have here. How to regenerate. Okay, we're talking about regenerating soil. Now, I'm going to tell you, that's going to be a very in-depth subject, and that might have to be something that we have to shelf for now, but we're going to have to go back and revisit maybe next week or the following week, because I honestly feel like we're going to be talking about soil until the cows come home, as they like to say, because there is ways to be able to regenerate this soil or this dirt into something that's going to produce life. And that's honestly what I've been doing for the 6 years since I purchased this home. That's what I've been doing all around this property. But I'm going to tell you this, the main thing is going to be permaculture. Permaculture would be the best thing you could possibly do to regenerate dirt into a living organism. But on with the rest of the subject. So you're a new gardener. You step into the big box store, and hold on just a second, because Althea's Kitchen said something. So great, I have a lot of dirt. How do I amend it in a budget conscious? Please revisit the regeneration. Yes, I definitely will. And if I get to it today, I'll try to touch on it a little bit because that is one I'm very, very focused on, is using what you have and keeping things down to a budget. You know, Graylin's not here to get your money. You know, I'm all about saving a dollar. Oh, with that being said, look, I'm getting distracted. ADHD gardener. So when I went out to get my supplies this morning, because I actually had to go out this morning and grab some, I want to tell you guys something before we get on with the subject at hand. this is the best time to buy your gardening stuff. Speaking about being budget friendly. Look, I've said it before in other podcasts and other videos, and I want to make sure you hear me. Right now is the time to go to those big box stores, go to your Dollar Generals, your Lowe's, your Home Depot, because they are getting rid of their spring inventory. Even your Walmarts and so forth. They are getting rid of their spring inventory. So all of that soil, seeds, soaker hoses, utensils, they're moving all of that stuff out so that they can get Christmas inventory in there. So this is the best time to get some of the best deals. I mean, literally, I have 100 foot of soaker hose that I bought last week at a Dollar General, and I got it for like $12. So, I mean, that's an amazing deal. So this is your time to buy your stuff for the spring. All right. So I'm always trying to save you money, guys. But now, going back to the scenario, we're a beginner gardener. We just walk into a big box store and there's all these different bags of soil. And how do you know which one is the best one for you, right? Well, if we're container gardening, right out the gates. Now, this is one soil that I don't have here today because time constraints. I didn't have time to go out and get it. Stay away from the garden soil. Reason being, your garden soil, it is going to be a heavy, thick consistency that is designed for you to place in your existing soil. It's going to be a lot of wood particles, a lot of wood chips in there. It's going to be big and chunky. That you do not want in a container, because what's going to happen with those big, thick chunks like that is that soil, well, as soon as it gets watered, it's going to compact down. It's going to tighten into a nice hard ball. You're not going to allow any water to pass through, and you're also not going to allow for aeration. And your plants are going to need that. Let's see, do I have any examples close by? No, not at the moment. Because anytime I have garden soil, it's only going out there in a square footage gardening. And, that's going in my rows and stuff because I'm going to break that up. All right. So, yeah, so just completely walk past. If you're a beginner gardener, walk past those, and your container garden, walk past the garden soil. It is not what you need. Now let's talk about the 3 different examples of soils I do have here, okay? And then Sweet Mama Clater says they probably why termites went to that soil that I have out back. Yeah, it's got a lot of wood chips in it. And I will say this. Now I'm not gonna talk about any brand of soil because one, these people aren't sponsoring me, they ain't paying me. But 2 is because I don't want to throw shade, but there are a lot of your big companies that those soils have been sitting on shelves for months at a time. So there could be insects in there. There could be termites in there. There could be a bunch of different, things in that soil. Now, this could be good or bad depending on what you want, because, I'm a firm believer that when you're creating a garden, you're creating an ecosystem. So you are inviting those bugs or pests into your environment. That could be a good thing. It just depends. So let's look at our first consistency. So you say, hey, I'm a beginner gardener. I'm in a container garden. What's the first soil that I want to look at? Well, the first one is going to be, I have every one in a 1-gallon container here, is going to be our seed starting mix. Now, let's see. Let's pitch the angle here so you guys can actually see the consistency, because seeing is fully believing. And don't talk about my Crocs and socks. All right. So here we go. So this is our seed starting blend. Now your seed starting blend, let's look at this consistency. You know what? Let me get my water container so we can wet this up and see what it looks like when it's wet as well. Because see how fine and how shredded this is. This is made to go in something small. So we're starting to talk about our seed starting trays and so forth. And it's going to have a consistency. You see those little white granules in there? That's an amendment that we add into our soils called perlite. This is made from volcanic glass, and the whole purpose for this is to add drainage and add aeration in our soil. But this is a seed starting blend. But let's add some water to this to see what it looks like when it's wet, because that's going to be the main factor, the main key point of this seed starting mix. And of course, I do have my handy dandy watering can close by. Let's add a little bit of water. Let's add a little bit of moisture. And now look at that. When I first start adding this this water, you see how, look at that. I poured that water in there and it is hydrophobic right now. So meaning that this is not even getting on our soil. That's another thing that a lot of people don't actually talk about when you're first starting a garden, is that when you get these bagged soils, when you first get them, they're going to be repellent of water. That's what hydrophobic means. So one good thing, especially if you're talking about starting seeds, is you want to soak this really good so you can get that moisture in there. So let's add a little bit more. Because again, this literally just came out the bag right before we went live. And see, being a former educator, I understand that people learn differently. Some people learn just through observation, but I was one of those learners in school that I had to learn kinesthetically. I had to have hands on, you know? That's the best way to learn for me. But everybody's different. All right. So now we got some moisture in there. And again, remember, this is that seed starting mix. So let's take a good mix of it, place it in hand so you guys can see it. Well, look how it clumps together. And then this is the best part. Watch this. I'm gonna wring it out like a sponge. See, the seed starting mix is going to have a consistency that's going to lock in a lot of moisture. The whole point of a seed starting mix is you want to hold that moisture in, because a lot of our differing seeds, they need to have that constant moisture for germination. So this is a seed starting mix. Now, granted, there are a lot of different brands that exist out there. A seed starting mix also typically should be inert. So what you're going to see in a seed starting mix is probably going to be like a consistency of a cocoa core, as well as probably like what's the word I'm looking for here? I'm looking at it right now. Peat moss. Then, of course, like I said, we're going to have also some of that perlite in there, but it's not going to have anything that's going to create fungus gnats. Because I know that's a burning question for a lot of people. Like, Graylin, how do you stop all of the fungus gnats when you're germinating your seeds? Well, you need to have a seed starting mix, because a seed starting mix being inert is not going to have that fungal matter already in there, as opposed to our next one, a potting soil. And see, this is where a lot of people go. They'll skip the seed starting mix, like, oh, let me just go ahead and buy some potting soil and start all my seeds that way. Well, you can do that outdoors, but if you're doing it indoors, let's say it's fall and you're trying to get ready, or it's winter and you're trying to get ready for that spring season, and you got all these plants inside under grow lights, guess what? You're now in a perfect breeding ground for all these fungal gnats, because inside of a potting mix in any of your other soils, it's not going to be inert. So it's going to have all of that fungus already there. All you do is add a little bit of moisture, and then boom, you're growing gnats. And now you're fighting all these gnats in your house, and you're coming to me saying, Graylin, how do I get rid of these gnats? So if you're starting indoors and you're starting your seeds from scratch, go with a seed starting mix first, because again, it's going to be inert, and it's designed to retain moisture over a longer period of time. So that's your first. And now let's go to our questions. All right, let's see. Let's back up a little bit. The mic on a stick. Thank you. Thank you. The mic on a stick, I love it because, it's able to pick up the audio real good. And then I don't know, it takes me back to those Bob Barker days, I'm old school. All right, let's see. And Miss Kitty One says, does it say seed starting mix on the bag? Yes, most of your seed starting bags, I don't want to grab the bag because I don't want to show the brand, they're going to say a seed starting mix. But you can always make your own too. If you do like a mixture of like a peat moss with a cocoa core and mix in perlite, you can mix and match and make your own too. A lot of the times that's what I do, because I'm frugal, and a lot of times I'll buy things in bulk. Like I said, buying things right now is the best time to buy it. And so I'll anticipate, like, okay, I'm going to grow X amount of seeds for next spring. So let me get all my raw supplies and mix it myself. Truth be told, one day I want to make my own soil mix. Wouldn't that be great? Urban garden with gray, some special soil blend. But I digress. So yes, you can make it yourself, but yeah, on the bag, typically what you're going to want to look for is going to say a seed starting mix or a seed starting blend, something in that matter. And it doesn't matter which brand, most of their consistency is about the same. Some do add a little bit more additives. Oh, I will say, now I'm getting a little ahead. This is kind of putting the horse before the cart, but I will say that one of the things I like to incorporate in my seed starting mix is I will add in a little bit of horticultural charcoal. And the reason behind this helps keep down it's antifungal, so it helps keep down that fungal. So that's why I'll use a horticultural charcoal in the mix. But I mean, I'm talking about like small amount, maybe like 2 to 3% when I'm mixing up my blend for my whole batch for all of my seed starting. But very good question. All right. And now continuing on, I know we have more questions, but I want to continue on with the subject and I'll come back to you guys' questions. Use guys, here I go again. I'm telling you, every time I do this with you guys in the morning, I go into Joe Pesci and I'm like, use guys. I don't know. Maybe I need to watch my cousin Vinny again. But I digress yet again. Potting mix. So there's a multitude of different companies, brands out there that make potting mix. And potting mix, look at our consistency, our consistency. When we had our seed starting mix, we had a very fine, almost like hairs in our blend, right? Very small particles and moisture retaining particles. Now, our potting mix is just a little bit chunkier. Look, we've got a little bit of wood chips in there. We still have our perlite. We don't have it as finely shred. And that's what's going to be your difference between your potting mix and your seed starting mix. But just like before, let's add a little bit of water in here, okay? And again, remember, it's going to be hydrophobic. It's going to try to push that water away. So we're going to just douse it here. We're just going to super soak this thing. There we go. Let's get our angle right. All right, so we got a little bit of moisture in there. And again, let's take a look at it and kind of try to clump it together. In soil vernacular, in soil like vocabulary, this is what we're calling is like our friability, your soil's ability to crumble. And look at that. It's not clumping together, it's not sticking together like we might see in a clay or something of that matter, or a silt, but it has a lot of good separation with it. Because we have those larger particles, this is going to allow air and water to pass through your soil. And we're talking about a container mix or a potting mix. This is ideally what you want. Now, of course, you guys know me. I would probably add other things in this, but this is kind of the consistency what we want, because what we want is drainage. We don't want our soil to compact on us. So let's look at some drainage. Here we go. Let's see. Can we get? Yeah, that's what we want. We want our soil to be able to pass through, because one key thing to remember when we're talking about soil is we want water. Now, of course, it varies depending on your plant. But I'm going to tell you, there's no plant out there that wants to just sit in water and soil mixture. And I know some of you sharp ones are saying, what about plants that live out in the swamp? Those are differing plants altogether. They're acclimated to that type of environment. But anything that we're going to grow, we're talking about our tomatoes, cucumbers, cilantro, collard greens, and so forth. No plant wants to sit in just stagnated water, because what happens is this creates an anaerobic environment. When we're sitting in a combination of both soil and water, no air can pass through that. This is how you get root rot, and this is how your plant dies back, because you don't have the presence of air for that soil to be able to pass through. All right, so we got some comments here. All right. Look like the community is answering some questions for him. Come on, Althea's Kitchen. You get out there and answer those questions. Yes. Peat moss, cocoa coir, perlite for a seed starting mix, and about 2% of horticultural. This is Grayland's tip. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Look at that. My community coming together. That's what I love. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that assist there. So yeah, so when we're talking about our potting mix, this is kind of the consistency that we're looking for. We want something that can, and these are tests that you can do yourself. So I'm showing you how to do it here, but really experiment around with it. I mean, because seeing is truly believing. If you're wondering, well, hey, why are my tomatoes not growing? See how much drainage you're getting out of that soil. Take a sample of your soil, take a handful, dunk it in some water, and see how much water and air is passing through it. And then that way you can know for yourself. So this is the consistency that we're looking for with our potting mixes. But now I will say this, one caveat, and I am no conspiracy guy by any means. I am going to say that I've noticed that a lot of the recent bags, and I'm talking about all companies going forward, have a very big consistency of wood mulch in their soil consistency. And this is a blessing and a curse because the more wood you start to introduce into your potting mixes, the more water it retains. And if it's retaining too much water, again, we can get into those situations where we're creating root rot situations. See, root rot is a fungus. And when there's so much moisture there, and again, a lack of oxygen, you get those perfect breeding grounds for that root rot to come in and starts killing your plants. That's why even with these potting mixes, no matter what bag soil it is, I'm going to amend it so that I can make sure that it has the proper drainage that it needs to. Make sense? But carrying on. So, next, our next example that I have here for you. Wow, I'm looking at the time, man. I'm telling you, maybe I might have to start talking about soil more consistency because we're almost out of time, guys. Just talking about soil today. All right, so our next mixer that we're going to look at, this is going to be a quote unquote container mixes. So a lot of the big brands that we have out there realized that there was a gap in soil. They had potting mixes, and then they had not container mixes. They had gardening mixes, and they realized that there was a gap. There was a demand that there was not a need to fill. So a lot of the companies compensated with that by creating a container mix. Because remember, I told you that garden blend is going to be for outdoors, not in container soil because of the amount of wood in it, the amount of wood chips, and so forth in it. It's meant to be added to your pre-existing topsoil. Your potting soil really truly is designed for your containers because of how much air it allows to pass through. Well, the companies kind of came in the middle and they created a blend called a container blend. And now not everybody has this, but some of the companies are starting to make it. And this is billed as a container blend. And honestly, just looking at the consistency, dry, it looked like it's kind of a mixture between both your potting mix as well as your seed starting mix. So you see we have those fibers here. This is cocoa coir, just looking at it. Now, I haven't looked at the bag to see exactly what's all in it, but I'm just looking. I can tell you right now, that looks like it's cocoa coir or potentially even shaved down wood. Then we also have our larger wood chunks as well. But of course, and look, we even have some bigger wood chunks. So it's going to be the best of both worlds, but let's put some water in it. See what it looks like when it's wet. Again, remember, it's going to be hygroscopic. So let's soak it real good. And it's just passing away. I don't know if you guys can hear all that water draining off my deck. Let's add a little bit more. Yeah, because we want to try to soak it. You know, what would have been better is if instead of doing this with a 1 gallon container that drains, maybe doing this in a Tupperware or a tote so it can hold on to that water. But here we are, right? All right, so let's look at this consistency of this quote unquote container mix. And let's again try to see if we can get it to clump. Nope, it breaks up real good. Again, this is a good thing. You want it to break up. And like I said, all right, so let's try to do the squeeze test, okay? Like we did with our seed starting mix. All right, so I'm doing a squeeze test and I'm not getting any residual water out there. So it's not holding on to too much water, but there is still wetness there, right? There's wetness there and there's all those little particles. So we can see we're holding on to some water, but we're not holding on to too much. And when it comes to your container mix, this is what you're going to want. You're going to want something that can hold on to some water, but still allows it to pass through. So you guys know, of course, I grow all the strawberries, I grow the pineapples and so forth. Again, your plants are not going to want to sit in a moggy, soggy mix of water and soil. You really want that drainage to pass through. So I'm gonna tell you, this soil that I bought is like the cheapest soil I can find. This was like at Dollar General, and this is actually a good consistency. In all earnest, I would probably use this in a container. Now, it's still add in a little bit of horticultural charcoal along with it, and maybe even some earthworm castings. But that's when we're talking about our amendments. But this is a good consistency. So again, this brand's not paying me, so I'm not mentioning their name, but this is a good consistency. And again, like I was telling Miss Kitty Kitty One, you can make this on your own. But let's move because the sun is starting to follow me. And I don't know if you guys can see, I'm starting to sweat a little bit. It's hot out here in Texas. We're going to sit in the shade for just a moment. And we were actually out of time for today, but because I spent so much time just speaking specifically about soil, I'm going to let it run about 5 more minutes so we can answer some of you guys, some of you folks' questions. So that's your differences in your soil, generally speaking. Again, we didn't have a good example of container soil, excuse me, not of container soil, of raised. What is it called? Oh, and that's another thing. Container soil sometimes is referred to as raised bed soil. So they're one and the same. You could use them both. Yes, it is very hot in Texas. Would say, sweet Mama Clayton said she had to go inside. Yeah, look, I need to go inside too. That's why I try to do these early in the morning before that heat, that Texas heat starts to creep in. But yeah, so that's your breakdown of your differing soil. So yes, sometimes your container soil will be also labeled as raised bed soil. That is kind of the consistency you want. And again, you want to have something that allows water and air to pass through, but not too much. You want to hang on to a little bit of moisture because ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to recreate those same environmental conditions that that plant is known for growing in. For instance, like I have my moringa trees here, right? Let's switch the camera around here, and we're not looking at my wooden lattice. Let's look at the moringa, right? Now there was a gentleman I met on YouTube that wants to send me some more moringa seed. I need to reach out to him. But my moringa is a subtropical plant, subtropical tree. It is used to growing in like your hottest environments. So it's going to need a soil that one allows it to get moisture, but also allows that moisture to pass away or pass through it because it's used to those type of environments. So when we're considering our plants, we have to take that in consideration. Another one, like our pineapples, right? We have pineapple. I can't remember what pineapple that is. Honestly, I bought it from a grocery store. But on the sides, oh, camera's dropping. I have my pink pineapples. Those are a subcanopy plant. Those are used to be in environments where there is partial shade in there. Again, you might have a little bit moister soil than, like for instance, your moringa, but it's used to having a slightly moisture soil. So you're trying to recreate those type of conditions because it's used to hanging under another tree and kind of getting the residual moisture off of it and some partial shade. So when it comes to soil science and growing our plants, essentially what we're trying to do, that's what mankind does, right? We're always trying to control our environment, but you're trying to recreate the environment in which that plant has already grown in the past. Does that make sense? Thank you, Athea's Kitchen. She said, thank you, Graylin. Fantastic information, and you're a great educator. I appreciate you. And I thank you for being here because you were a lot of great help today. Miss Kitty Kitty One says, for containers, how do I know if it's time to change to a bigger container? It's going to depend on your plant. That's a great question, Miss Kitty Kitty One. Like when it comes to tomatoes, right? Tomatoes, typically, you need, if we're talking about like a determinate variety of tomato. Let's look at a determinate variety. So we're going to look at like a Roma tomato, right? Aroma is going to be determinate, meaning that it's only going to produce just enough, usually around all at one time, tomatoes for one big bush for the season, right? And it typically is a bush type of plant. It's only going to need about maybe 5 to 10 gallons as far as the amount of volume soil that needs around it. You go with a 5 gallon bucket, that will totally work for a determinate tomato. But if we're talking about an indeterminate tomato, your vining type of tomato, it's producing and growing through the entire season. It's going to need a little bit more room to stretch its legs. So you're probably looking anywhere between a 10 gallon to 15 gallon, if not 20 gallon, or plant directly in a raised bed and so forth. It's going to need more room to stretch its legs. It's going to vary depending on your plant. If you're growing something like a passion fruit, like a Passiflora incarta, like a maypop or something, or you're growing like a basil and so forth, it's going to depend on your plant. I would say your best tip, if you have a plant growing in a container, let's grab one real quick. If we have a plant that's growing in a container, and you know this is one that's going to truly start to stretch its legs and really need some room. First, let's look at bottom of our container. Look at that. Can you guys see that hair right there? That is a lateral root coming off of, what's this tree? Pakistani mulberry. So it's about time to go ahead and pop this up. Because again, remember, I think I told you guys, these are going in the ground, but I'm not planting them until fall. So I'm not ready to plant them yet because I don't want it to be too hot and dry these out while I'm trying to get them to establish themselves. So when the temperatures get cooler, all of my Pakistani mulberries are going to be planted in the soil so that they can get ready for next spring. But that would be your first step. Look at the bottom. The plant will tell you, because when your roots start to grow, and again, it depends depending on your plant. What will happen is those roots are, one, they're working from two different forces. We're working gravitronically, right? So they're following gravity. That's a new vocabulary. Did I say that correctly? Gravitropic or gravitropic? Gravitropic, that's the word. They're working gravitropically. So they're following gravity and they're trying to go towards the center of the earth, right? They're following gravity. Plus, they're also following the water. So they're working hydrophobically as well. So they're trying to follow that water. They're trying to find that water source, right? So that's why a lot of people recommend watering from the bottom when you can. It doesn't always work because sometimes we just don't have the ability to do so. But that's why a lot of people recommend water from the bottom, because you're training those roots to grow down. Now, you don't really have to train the roots because, again, we have that first variable there that it's working gravitropically as well. So taking all that consideration, I'm sorry, I'm getting really deep into the science of it, so I'm going to make it short. The roots are going to travel downward, and they're going to look for an exit path. So they're going to start circling until they find a hole, your drainage holes, where they can go out of. If it has already started to poke through the bottom, it has probably circled 2 or 3 times looking for that exit path. So that's why I say, just looking at the bottom at your drainage holes and kind of be your indicator whether or not it's ready to go up to a new pot. So use that as your rule of thumb. Does that make sense? All right, let's go back. We had a couple of questions come up here. And for everybody that joined us, thank you for joining us here. We are running way over time. We were supposed to start this at 9 o'clock, and I started talking about soil. So definitely make sure you go back and watch the replay, because I felt like I gave a lot of good information on being able to distinguish between those different types of soils, especially if you're a beginner gardener and you want to start container gardening. So definitely go back, watch the replay. But let's look at some questions here. Miss Kitty 1 says, "Oh, never thought to look at the bottom." Yeah, look at the bottom if you can. If you have the ability. Now, if you have some big container that's hard to lift up, it might be challenging. But definitely start by looking at the bottom and see. All right, and I think, let's see. All right. Oh, we got Central Texas here. All right, a lot of good game. I appreciate you, Black Camore. All right. So that's the advice I would give for a new container garden. And of course, if you like this information, if you like what we're talking about, make sure to join us on Saturdays. Make sure to go back and watch some of my reels, because I talk about a lot of this stuff in a lot of my reels and posts, because I always want to keep you guys informed. Because, like I said, for me, I'm not here to gain followers. I'm not trying to be internet famous. I just want to help you grow. The more people I can help get out and grow something, the better. I don't know. It's always been in me, to get out and help people. And that's my goal. Like, truly, I'm not trying to be famous. I just want to help you. If you have questions, you can DM me and I will respond to you. Give me about 24 to 48 hours and I will respond back to you. If you have questions, ask them in the comments. As a lot of you guys know, I go and I answer every single one of those questions. Of course, as the follower base grows, it's taken me a little longer sometimes, but I personally go in and answer all those questions. I'm here to help you grow. But guys, it has been fantastic and phenomenal speaking with you today, as always. Like I said before at the top of the live, you could be anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here with me. And I greatly appreciate you. Oh, wait, one final question. All right, this is my friend Wayanism. Let's see. And I got to get this question, because I know you have been trying to catch these lives for the longest time. So I am not going to leave you before I answer your question. Let's see. All right, Wayneism says, what herbs do you grow? What has been challenging for you to grow in Texas? Okay, we're way over time, but I'm gonna get my buddy's question. I grow every herb I can. I love my mints. You know, I love mints in containers. Basil. I grow so many basil. Like honestly, I feel like I'm the basil king of North Texas because I mean basil all over the place. I have literally pounds of basil harvest. I'm giving basil away because I have so much basil. But again, like I told you guys before, it's all because of the pest control factor for basil. Rosemary. I have so many rosemary bushes around because one, it's so easy to propagate. Because I use a lot of basil in cooking. Excuse me, rosemary and cooking. I use a lot of basil and cooking too, but rosemary and cooking. So as I'm pruning it back and using it for cooking, I'm taking those stems, plopping them in some soil or sticking them in some water, and then boom, new rosemary propagations. And so it's a great way for pest control, and it's a great way to make the house and the yard smell really good as the wind passes through that rosemary and basil for that matter. Like if you've never grown a purple basil, grow some purple basil. The smell that comes off of the purple basil as you're walking through your garden, it's like a feast for the senses. It like is so calming and tranquil just having that scent blow through. Like truly, that's one I highly recommend. You haven't grown purple basil, get you some purple basil seeds because it's definitely worth it from an olfactory system sense. But all right, guys. So very good question, Waymanism. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you guys. We're gonna do this again next Saturday. And if you have any additional questions, like I said, if you're late joining us here, make sure to go back and watch the replay because I'm gonna post it right after I'm done here. It's been amazing talking to you. Talk to you again real soon.